All right, people. So we've got these press conferences that have been happening for the upcoming rematch between Tyson Fury and Wladimir Klitschko. We just had the UK press conference, the first UK press conference yesterday, and we had a press conference in Germany just today. I'm going to focus mainly on what I thought of the UK press conference yesterday. I thought it was more eventful and more insightful than the press conference in Germany today. Now, to me, the way Wladimir opened the press conference, it was a clear attempt to try and restore order in his own mind for his own psychological comfort. He wants to try and restore order. To him, Tyson Fury is a loose cannon. He's all over the place. He can't read him. He can't control him. And that makes Wladimir Klitschko feel very uncomfortable. Wladimir is kind of like a boardroom bully. He's like the kind of bully you would get in the corporate world, whose bullying methods are very subtle, and they have, you know, the bullies in the corporate world have this pretense of being civilized because they got a suit on and all this type of stuff. They're not swearing. They have this pretense of being civilized, but they bully and intimidate people in their own way in the boardroom. It's not as blatant as the way people would do it in the street. Okay, that's the environment that Wladimir Klitschko feels comfortable in, when everybody is being civilized and they've all got suits on, you know, quote unquote civilized, and they've all got suits on and they're all speaking in a certain way, and there's all this order and decorum and these strict rules about how you're supposed to behave. Wladimir operates, well, he prefers to operate. He feels comfortable operating in that type of environment and that type of climate. So the way he started the press conference, coming out and raising the topic of the controversy that Tyson Fury created, you know, in the weeks following his, actually before and after his win over Wladimir Klitschko, where he talked about homosexuals and women and stuff like that. He tried to bring that up to restore order, okay, hoping that it would calm Tyson Fury's antics down and embarrass him maybe, and two, to try and get the British public on his side. That's why he tried to do that. Now, in terms of restoring order, it obviously didn't work. Tyson Fury don't care what you think about him and all that. So that didn't work. Tyson Fury just rebutted that immediately. But as far as restoring order, I don't think it worked either. Because as I say, he was trying to get the British public on his side. It didn't work because Wladimir Klitschko said that Tyson Fury wants people like Elton John, who's gay, to be locked up, and people like the Queen to be either in the kitchen or on their back. Wladimir is very naive to think that making those remarks would resonate with the British public. Very naive. It shows how out of touch he is. Maybe the culture in Germany, among the boxing fans in Germany, is very different than the British boxing fans. You know, the demographic of British boxing fans, the main demographic, these are people who couldn't care less about Elton John. Are you kidding me? You know, like I say, maybe over there in Germany, in those big arenas of Wladimir, they like Rod Stewart and Elton John and all that type of stuff. In Britain, Elton John ain't getting no love from the average boxing crowd. Trust me. Nobody gives no damn about Elton John. So that's not going to work, bringing up Elton John. And then the Queen, same way with the Queen. In fact, I know the media likes to portray this, that, and the other, because the media is, you know, owned by a lot of these aristocratic families who have been close to the royal family for a long time. So they like to give, through the media, this impression that the royal family enjoy massively popular support in Britain. They don't. You've got a minority of people in Britain who support the royal family. It's a fairly small minority. Then you've also got a minority of people in Britain who hate the royal family. And then you've got the majority of people who are just totally indifferent to the royal family. They don't think about them. They don't care about them. They couldn't care less about the royal family. That's the majority of people. They're just totally indifferent in Britain towards the royals. There's only like I say, a minority of royalists. So bringing the Queen's name up, hoping to get sympathy from a boxing crowd, particularly a Tyson Fury boxing crowd, who the hell cares? You think Tyson Fury likes the Queen? You think traveling people like the British royal family? Are you mad? So Wladimir just showed how totally out of touch he is. And that whole attempt to restore order and to try and get the British public on his side failed miserably. And Tyson Fury did what he did for the rest of the press conference, was clowning on Wladimir. A lot of the press were asking Wladimir very harsh questions. Actually, not even harsh questions, fair questions. They were asking him about some of the dubious tactics and methods that he's used throughout his career, in terms of using spongy canvas and stuff to do with his hand wraps. Personally, I would like to see them ask him about all the holding that he's been doing in a lot of his fights, like the Povetkin fight and what have you. Terrible amount of holding that many other fighters, if they weren't as powerful in boxing as Wladimir Klitschko is, they would have been disqualified. I've seen people disqualified for a lot less. But either way, it was a pretty hostile atmosphere for Wladimir Klitschko at that press conference. Definitely it was pro-Fury and it was anti-Vlad. And Vlad didn't like it at all. He looked very pissed off. And he looked lost for words, actually, throughout most of the press conference. He was lost for words. He didn't know what to say, particularly when the press were turning against him. He just didn't know what to do. He's not used to that. He's used to the press asking him safe questions, not asking him real questions. So he was taken aback. He was totally out of his comfort zone. He did not like it. And Tyson Fury has to keep on doing that. You know, Tyson Fury is just a real guy who's going to say how he feels. And that's that. He don't care about all the decorum and the rules and regulations and all that type of stuff. He's operating totally outside of the environment that Wladimir Klitschko's used to operating in. Like I say, it's the boardroom bully versus the street tough guy, the guy who's in the streets, the guy who knows about fighting, the guy who's been around all types of intimidating people in the streets and all that. That's the type of character Tyson Fury is. All that boardroom, subtle bullying, pseudo-civilized stuff that Wladimir tried to come with, that's not going to impress or intimidate a guy like Tyson Fury. He's more like a wild cat in the jungle, the real jungle, not the boardroom, the real jungle. And those boardroom guys, most of them can't survive in the real jungle down with the wolves and the lions and the savages. They can't survive there because there's no rules. So yeah, from a psychological point of view, Tyson Fury was definitely well on top. Now, I will say this though about Fury. We know that he blows up in between fights. I definitely don't like that. Will Tyson Fury end up just being a flash in the pan? Because if there's one thing that Wladimir Klitschko can take heart from, as far as the first fight, and he'll be trying to take heart from something. Tyson Fury talked about this in the press conference. This is how fighters are. They're not going to look at it as though, okay, this guy's a better fighter than me. They're going to look at it and say, there was some things I did wrong. I can improve this. I can improve that. And fighters have to have that mentality. Otherwise, they won't become successful. If they didn't have that mentality, no fighter would have ever won a rematch. And many fighters have won rematches where they lost the first fight. So Wladimir is going to be trying to cling on to things. Okay. And the fact that he didn't get knocked out by Fury, the fact that he didn't even really get hurt by Fury, is definitely something that Wladimir is clinging on to. I did notice Wladimir don't look as confident before this fight as he did before the first fight. In all the stare downs, and I know these things are not normally significant, but sometimes they are significant. In all the stare downs before the first fight, Wladimir didn't want to look away. Before this fight now in the press conferences, Wladimir tends to be the guy looking away first. And this is something that happened before the rematch between Evander Holyfield and Mike Tyson. If you go look at the first fight between Holyfield and Tyson, Tyson was staring Holyfield down hard. And he weren't looking away, and it was Holyfield who was trying to avoid Mike Tyson's gaze. But go look at the build-up to the rematch. Mike Tyson couldn't look Holyfield in the eye, even before the opening bell, when both fighters came together to hear the referee's instructions. Tyson couldn't look Holyfield in the eye. And that was significant because Tyson was a guy who, a big part of his game was staring his opponent down. So the guy with the meanest grill, the meanest ice grill in boxing, Mike Tyson, if he can't look you in the eye, then you've got to him. And to a lesser extent, I think with Wladimir, he also likes to rely on his ice grill, you know, staring you down. So, you know, I wouldn't say Wladimir looked overtly intimidated, but there was slight little signs here and there which indicated that Wladimir understood that he was standing in front of somebody who really can get the better of him. And in contrast to that, Fury to me seemed even more confident this time. He was confident before the first fight, but you could see the confidence emanating from Tyson Fury in the press conference in London. And even in the press conference today in Germany, you could see just pure confidence emanating from him. He knows he's got Vlad's number. He knows he's got the measure of the man. Okay? In his mind, at least. Whether that manifests itself in the ring remains to be seen. Now, the point I wanted to make, I kind of went off on a tangent a little bit there. The point I wanted to make is, will Tyson Fury just be a one-hit wonder? Will he just be a flash in the pan? Because the history of boxing, and definitely the heavyweight championship, is littered with examples of fighters who pulled off amazing victories only to go nowhere. You go back to the late 70s. Muhammad Ali, when he fought Leon Spinks. Spinks was an absolute novice. Yes, he was an Olympic gold medalist, but as a professional, he'd had less than 10 fights. And he was going up against a great and dominant champion and vastly experienced champion in Muhammad Ali. And he beat Ali in that first fight. Hands down. It was shocking. And many people expected big things from Spinks following that. But they had the rematch. Ali trained better, took it more seriously, and he dealt with Spinks with relative ease and won a very comfortable decision. You fast forward to the mid-80s, and Leon Spinks' brother, Michael Spinks, was involved in a fight with Larry Holmes, and he dethroned Larry Holmes. There was controversy about his fight with Larry Holmes, the first fight, and controversy about the second fight, but nonetheless, history shows that he won those fights, and he became the linear heavyweight champion of the world. Okay, he was the man who beat the man who beat the man all the way back to Floyd Patterson, because Rocky Marciano retired without being defeated. So, being the linear champion, most people, it seems these days, assume the linear champion is the best champion. Certainly, a lot of people assume that anyway, or seem to believe that. Well, Mike Tyson made absolute nonsense of that, because when Mike Tyson fought the linear champion Michael Spinks, it ended up being one of Tyson's easiest fights of his whole career. Will Tyson Fury end up like that? A linear champion who was just a flash in a pan, who did pull off a great win like Spinks did over Holmes, beating a great champion, but then end up being nothing special himself. Again, fast forward a few years ahead of that, you got Buster Douglas knocking out Tyson. And in Buster Douglas' very next fight, he gets knocked out by Holyfield. Oliver McCall, when he beat Lennox Lewis, Oliver McCall ended up being not a very good champion. I mean, he had, many losses beforehand, so it's maybe not quite the same as some of the other examples, but still. And the same with Hasim Rahman. So The history of heavyweight boxing is littered with examples of fighters who pulled off big historic victories. I mean, in terms of upsets in the heavyweight division, you're not going to get a bigger upset than Buster Douglas knocking out Mike Tyson. That was a huge upset. Historic upset. The odds were massive. I believe there was one bookmakers that had Buster Douglas as a 42-1 underdog. Tyson was a monolithic champion at the time. People saw this guy as invincible, totally invincible, way more. There was a far greater aura of invincibility surrounding Mike Tyson then than there was around Wladimir Klitschko when Tyson Fury fought him. Trust me. Tyson was seen as just totally invincible by many. So yeah, will Tyson Fury end up being just another flash in the pan? A guy pulled off a historic victory? Will Wladimir Klitschko bring his courage? Will he find some courage from somewhere to make the most out of his physical ability? Because let's not get it confused. Wladimir Klitschko has always been fantastically physically gifted. He does have great balance. He's got good hand speed for a guy of his size. He's got very nice technique at long range and even at mid range. He don't fight inside. Maybe he can't fight inside. We've certainly never seen it. But long range, mid range, Wladimir Klitschko is very, very talented. And very formidable. Got terrific power in both hands. Great jab. If he actually fights with confidence, finds some heart, and says, you know what? If I'm going to go out, I'm going to go out all guns blazing. If he goes into this rematch with that type of attitude, it's going to be very dangerous for Tyson Fury. That's what I can tell you. But he has to go and find some heart. And as I've said in other videos, there are examples of fighters who have been known for having questionable heart, questionable courage. But yet for one particular fight, they managed to summon it from somewhere. Again, Buster Douglas against Tyson was a good example. Douglas was known as kind of a, you know, I don't want to say cowardly fighter, but certainly not a fighter with the most inner confidence. But against Tyson, he was supremely confident and he fought like an absolute warrior for that particular night. But then one fight later against Buster Douglas, it was the same, against Evander Holyfield, it was the same old Buster Douglas again. On the canvas, could have got up, but I thought, you know what? I'll leave it. So, yeah, Vladimir's got to find that courage from somewhere. It might happen. He could do it. We'll see. Other people are going to say a leopard, can't change his spots, and Wladimir is not going to be able to find any courage from anywhere. I don't know. It'll be interesting to find out. I hope it's a better fight than the first time around. That's one thing I can say. First fight was pretty damn appalling. It was intriguing watching it at the time because of the fact that, because of what was unfolding in terms of Wladimir losing the fight. That was intriguing, but it's not a fight you'd really want to watch more than once, unless you're studying it for specific reasons, to look at certain punches that either fighter throws or whatever. But just from a purely entertainment point of view, you're not going to watch Klitschko Fury more than once. So, yeah, there's a lot to contemplate there, people. I've mentioned a lot in this video. Let me know how you feel about it all. Will Tyson Fury go down as one of the greats? Will he be a flash in the pan? Will he be like a Muhammad Ali? I've mentioned this many, many times before, and I stand by it. There is a lot of similarities in terms of the personality traits of Tyson Fury and Muhammad Ali. When I first said that, a couple years ago, there were many people who didn't like it. In the comment section, they were saying, what are you talking about, man? That's rubbish. But no, the psychological approach of Tyson Fury is very similar to Ali. Very, very similar. They're both guys who, through being loud and brash and humorous, they attempt to get a psychological edge on their opponent by being that way, by dominating the room, by being the biggest and boldest personality in the room and just dominating the whole atmosphere. and ridiculing their opponent. That's what Tyson Fury likes to do. That's how he behaves in the fighting environment. And Ali used to do the same, mocking all his opponents, calling them names, ridiculing them. Same stuff Ali used to do. And it would have a double effect. It would give Ali himself confidence. That's what he did with Sonny Liston. He admitted after the Liston fight, years down the line, that he was petrified going into the Sonny Liston fight. But he knew he couldn't allow Liston to see that. So he deliberately acted crazy to try and get under Liston's skin and make Liston feel like, you know what, I don't know what this guy's going to do, because crazy people are unpredictable. So he did it for that, to try and, give himself confidence, and also to try and get under his opponent's skin and just dominate the whole situation. So they're very similar type of mentalities, Tyson Fury and Muhammad Ali. But will Tyson Fury end up being like an Ali in, for example, the Liston fight? That was a great win, a historic win going into that fight there. Ali was an underdog against Sonny Liston. He pulled it off. And he went on to have a great career and be, recognized as one of, if not the greatest heavyweight of all time. Will Tyson Fury follow suit? Will his career play out in similar fashion? Remains to be seen. All very interesting stuff to contemplate. Tyson Fury, whether you love him or hate him, and personally, I think he's a breath of fresh air in terms of his personality. He's always entertaining. He's always controversial. And I think heavyweight boxing needs that after the dull Klitschko era, where it was all very corporate and fake, with all this, pretense of being civilized, when it was all nonsense, because behind the scenes, Wladimir was anything but civilized. The way that he was conducting his business and the way that he was treating fighters and all the dirty tactics he was using behind the scenes pre-fight, and even dirty tactics he was using in the ring. This whole civilized, nice guy routine that Wladimir put on was all just BS. It was very antiseptic. It was very dull. It was very boring, and boxing fans really didn't take to it. So now we've got people like Fury, Wilder, who is a very colourful character as well. He's there. And then you've still got the more, slightly more corporate guys like Joshua, although Joshua's not as dull as Wladimir Klitschko, but he's certainly not as verbally gifted as people like Tyson Fury and Wilder, for example. So anyway, people, I'm rambling all over the place here. That was my impression of the press conference, or the press conferences, and the psychological battle that's going on between the two guys. I think Wladimir will take some heart from the fact that he didn't get knocked out first time around. If he'd been knocked out the first time, I don't think Wladimir would have even taken the rematch if he got devastatingly KO'd. But as I say, the fact that he went the distance, the fact that he never really got hurt, he's thinking, you know what? Fury don't hit that hard. I didn't get KO'd. I didn't get wobbled. I can beat this guy. But if he'd been nailed to the canvas, if he was wobbling around on Amir Khan legs and then got stretched out, I think that would have left deeper scars in his mind. So he'll be clinging on to the fact that he went the distance and never really got hurt. And he'll be trying to give himself confidence from that. We'll see if it works. We'll see if it don't work. Let me know what you felt about the press conferences, people. What did you think about the psychological aspect? Who do you think came off better? Do you think Fury looked confident? Do you think Klitschko looked confident? Do you think any of this stuff is going to matter? Personally, I think it will matter. No, I think it won't matter until Wladimir gets hit. Vladimir's going to go the first, round or whatever. He's going to come out, I think, confident, trying to assert himself. And he will be looking to let his hands go more so than the first fight. But as soon as he gets clipped with a clean shot, assuming he gets clipped with a clean shot, I don't know whether he will, but as soon as he does, I think Wladimir will revert back to type and he'll become gun shy again. That's what I think. But if he manages to start landing big shots on Fury, then his confidence will grow and grow. Right? But if he gets clipped first, I think it's it's all she wrote. That's what I think. So anyway, drop your comments below, people. It's your boy Hatman. I'm out.